Hey guys, Marissa at KitchenTableStamper.com. Today I want to run you through this fun little treat box. I made this tote for these really cool little 2 packs of Pepperidge Farm Milano cookies that I found on Amazon. I was browsing Amazon looking for something fun to do for the markets. I want all my food to be packaged food, and treats sell really well. So as I was browsing, I saw this. It's a 20-pack tub of Milano cookies, and it was less than $7. So you get 2 packs, 20 of them, and I thought what a fun thing to dress up for the markets. So I came up with this fun little tote. I sent these to all the girls who took my Painted Harvest Stamp a Stack class online too. If they got the to-go kit, I threw one of these cute little treats in there for them. I'm not spoiling the surprise. I think I let it go far enough. They should have their packages by now. But let me show you how I made this. Let's start with the Stampin' Up supplies that you need to complete this project. I used Stampin' Up's Painted Harvest and Leaf Punch. You can bundle these right now. They're in the holiday catalog and save 10% if you buy these 2 products together, and the leaf stamps in the Painted Harvest coordinate with the punch. I also used my layering circles, framelits, and my stitched shapes framelits. The circle here is the second to the largest stitched shape circle with its coordinating layering circle scalloped die. The Stampin' pads I used for this project are Garden Green, Crushed Curry, Daffodil Delight, Soft Suede. I also have a Tangerine Tango ink pad because I'm making these for market, so I need to stamp them with the Stampin' Up copyright. So that's why I've got this one. It's Tangerine Tango cardstock. All right, the ribbon I used for this project is the Crushed Curry mini chevron ribbon. I just love this. It ties such a soft, pretty bow, and there's a lot on the spool. I've gotten lots of these little treats made with this one spool of ribbon. My consumables are Tangerine Tango, and the Tangerine Tango is 11 inches by 4 3/4. I have my Very Vanilla and my Early Espresso die cuts already done. I have a scrap of Garden Green for the leaf. And then my Designer Series paper, you have 2 each. This is the Designer Series paper from the Painted Harvest. I think we're gonna do this one with this arrangement of papers. I also did that same candy yellow dash pattern with the sunflowers. And then I've used the acorns and that pretty espresso chevron pattern. Love that. We're gonna just make them all a little bit different, so we're gonna use those patterns this time. And my Designer Series paper are 2 pieces that are 2 by 1 1/2 and 2 pieces that are 3 3/8 by 2. I'm gonna clear away all the products and grab the Simply Score tool, and we'll get to work on building this little tote. I've got my Simply Score tool, and we're gonna start with the 4 3/4 inch side. There'll be a scoring diagram on the project sheet that'll have this template and show you where to do all your scoring. So don't worry, if you want to just buzz over to KitchenTableStamper.com, the link is below, and you could get the free printable project sheet for this. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna score down the 4 3/4 inch side at 1 1/4. And then we're gonna also score at 3 1/2. That's the scoring portrait. And we're gonna turn it landscape, so the 11 inch is in the tool. And we're going to score this first score at 3 5/8. But we're gonna stop when we hit this intersecting line, this 1 1/4 inch line. Then we're gonna pick up and we're gonna keep scoring from this next intersecting line to the bottom. And I found that if you're having trouble catching where the line picks up, a really good way to do this is to bring in something contrast with a square edge, put it against the top, and then you score at 3 3/8. When you hit that intersecting line, pick up, but run along the side of your perpendicular object, and then you'll be able to find that 3 5/8 score line again where it picks up. The next is 4 7/8, and you're going to score all the way down this time. 6 1/8, and you're going to score all the way down. And then again, we're going to score only until the intersecting score lines, and this one's at 7 3/8. So you find your 7 3/8, and then score down to the intersecting line, pick up, and at the intersecting line, score down again. And that straight line helps you find the groove after you've picked up. All right, let's get a bone folder and some paper snips, and I'll show you where you're going to cut on this paper. Okay, so let's work our creases here. We'll start with these long guys, and then we're going to do these that go all the way across. All right, then with the paper snips, we're going to take out these rectangles here. Okay, so where we only scored down to the intersecting score line, we'll cut each of those. And then we'll cut down that 1 1/4 line till we intersect. You can absolutely do this with a paper trimmer for a perfectly straight cut if that works better for you. But I just follow the line with a scissor and it turns out pretty neat. Okay, so we've cut out those corners. Now the next thing we want to do is do a very small V-cut where we actually just cut out the score line on both sides at both score lines in this rectangle panel. Then we'll turn and do the exact same thing. We're just making a tiny little beveled cut that removes that score line. Okay, I'm going to get some Terran tape and the Tangerine Tango stamp pad so I can stamp my information on the bottom and show you where we're going to put adhesive. Okay, so we have our little template, or we have our little box here, and I've got some Terran tape, and we're going to add Terran tape to the flaps here, here, and the same on the other side, here, and here. Okay, then at the bottom of the box, I'm going to stamp my copyright Stampin' Up. Now, before we do any assembly on this box, let's get the Designer Series paper adhered. We're going to do that with a snail adhesive. All right. What you want to do with these pieces, I've got all the adhesive on them now. You want to center them left to right and leave about the same margin across the top. And then fill in with the other pattern so that you leave the same margin above the score and on the right and left. So you're just centering those papers. It's a pretty combination. All right, before we assemble the box, let's put some handles in here. And I completely forgot to tell you that we're using our layering ovals to make the handles. I'll get the layering oval and the Big Shot, and we'll take care of the handles right now. Okay, I've got the smallest oval from the layering ovals and a bitty bit of repositionable tape. What we want to do here, let me turn this machine so you can see. What you want to do is take the box and fold it up on itself. So you're going to flatten the bottom and you're going to line up the edges and the corners, and then add the little oval where you want the handle to sit. I'm going to tape that down with some low tack tape, and then I'm going to put it just in the end of my Big Shot, which is all set up for die cutting. I have my thin adapter and 2 cutting pads here. I'm going to bring the second cutting pad in, and it's just squeezing that little oval, and the rest of the box, as you can see as I start to crank it in here, is out the back. Now we've got the bottom of the box right here, so we can only go as far as to cut that oval. it's lined up on 4 pieces of paper. Designer series paper, then the Tangerine Tango cardstock, then more Tangerine Tango cardstock, and more designer series paper. So it's not going to cut all the way through. What you have to do at this point is now remove that oval, and then in the little embossed impression that it left on the inside of the box, you're going to just tack that oval right back in that space. And we're going to run it again a second time to get the handle on the other side. This way your handles line up perfectly. Now if you have an oval punch, you might want to grab an oval punch for this. Stampin' Up! Doesn't have one currently, and believe it or not, I couldn't find one in my stash. Layering ovals are doing the trick. All right, so again, I've got just the end of the box there, the end of the big shot. I'll crank it in until it cuts the rest of the way through, and then pull my project out, pop out the oval, take off the die. And now, gently, gently, we have our complete tote. Let's put it together. Okay, before I adhere my sides, I've got a little loose spot here because I adhered with snails. I'm adding a little multi-purpose liquid glue to make sure that pattern paper is down even after we've done die cutting. Let's check this side. Ah, looks like I got the snail a little bit higher on that side, but just check that so that your designer series paper doesn't get torn when you start to tie your bows and things. Okay, I'm going to remove all this adhesive backing, and then we'll put the box together. Okay, so I'm pulling the very last bit of release paper here on our adhesive. And what we're gonna do is take this first set of tabs here and kind of tuck them in and bring the bottom up to the tab. We'll adhere the bottom. And then we'll take the second set of tabs and we'll tuck it to the inside of the box, fold this other side of the tote up, and then burnish the adhesive down. And look at that, you just built a cookie tote. Now we'll tuck our little dark chocolate Milano in there and get ready to decorate. Let me get some ink pads and the Stampin' Pierce mat and we'll get decorating. I hurry when I set up for this video and completely forgot my early espresso ink pad. Don't worry, it'll be listed on the supply list on the project sheet at kitchentablestamper.com. Okay, so we've got our pieces here, garden green, very vanilla, and I've laid out my ink pads light to dark, Daffodil Delight, Crushed Curry, Soft Suede, Early Espresso, and my garden green is right down here. I'm going to take my garden green and the leaves from Painted Harvest, and I'm going to stamp a set right on that garden green with garden green. Then I have 2 flower images here. One's a full, my more solid image, and one is a little bit more delicate and detailed. We're going to start with this full image on our lighter ink. So we'll get the Daffodil Delight. We're going to stamp that right in the center of this circle, allowing our ink a little bit of time to transfer. Now you'll notice that I don't get a solid image at all. There's some darker, some lighter shades of ink that just happens naturally when you stamp. It looks a little bit wild like a splat right now, but this image has the details that'll bring that splat to look like flower petals. I like to line up the center. There's a little bump on one of the petals in the center, so I just find that. Here's the coordinating little bump. I just line those up. Doesn't have to be perfect. That's the nice thing about this set. Each flower is going to have a little different character, and that's okay. We're going to allow that crushed curry ink to transfer. And now you start to see those petal shapes emerge when you do that second step. The center is done with the soft suede, and it's just one color. It gets all the shading that you need from the stamp. We're going to stamp that over the bottom half of the flower. So pretty. Okay, let's close up the ink pads and we'll finish up our bag. Okay, here's our box. Let's get a sample. Here's our sample. This is what we're doing. Let's start by punching out our leaves. Got the leaf punch and the leaves that I stamped earlier. And we're just going to line those up upside down. Once we've got good alignment, then we clear our hands from the edges of the punch and punch out the image. And we need a little multi-purpose liquid glue because we're going to glue our sunflower panel right to the center of the early espresso. We're going to center it so we got even little scallops all the way around. Okay, and while this dries for a second, let's adhere our leaves. We're just going to add some multi-purpose liquid glue right down the stem of the leaf cluster. It works perfect that way. And the leaves can overlap the handle and the edge of the box. I've got the crushed curry mini chevron ribbon here, and I think it takes about 12 inches to do this. We'll thread the ribbon in through the back to the front, and I leave it on the spool, especially when I'm making a lot of something, because if you cut off an inch on the end of, or half an inch on the end every time you make a bow, you're gonna lose, if you make a dozen of something, 6 inches of ribbon. So I like to leave it on the spool, and the spool's off to my right hand here. I'm going to fold up and make my loop with the tail that I left about as tall as the box is, so maybe a 5-inch tail. We're going to loop over, pass it through that center that we held open, and pull tight. Then we'll hold the center of the ribbon, pull the tails, finesse, make the bow the size we like it. And now you see, we'll cut it right off the spool where we want it, so there's absolutely no waste. And on the other end, we're going to just cut maybe 1/4 of an inch off, just enough to make that edge pretty. Nice clean cut. Look at that. Isn't that adorable? All right, very last thing here. I've got some dimensionals. We're gonna put the dimensionals on our project, not on our medallion. That way we know that they're not gonna hang off the edge. So I'm gonna put 4 little dimensionals in kind of a X pattern here, or a cross pattern. Okay, my dimensionals are all sticky, the adhesive is exposed, and then we're going to bring the I'm Thankful for You medallion and make sure that our sentiment runs nice horizontal, not downhill or up. And there they are, our little Pepperidge Farm cookie totes. If you've got any questions about this Painted Harvest cookie tote or Stampin' Up, if there's anything I can do to help you stay crafty, email me, Marisa at kitchentablestamper.com. Thanks for watching.